Welcome, everyone, to the fifth episode of the Scale podcast. And today I have a very special guest who's Oliver from upstairs. Hello, Oliver. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Hey Melos, hey guys, how's it going? It's a pleasure being here.
Mhm.
Hopefully, I can contribute to the discussion. Yeah, looking
100%.
forward to this.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to talk all things around 3D visualizations, architectural representation, as well as like content creation. Which I do have your YouTube channel open right here, and I can see that your like oldest YouTube video is from 7 years ago. Can you take us a little bit through the journey and how you started that out? And did you ever think it would come to having like 370,000 subscribers as of now?
Yeah, never in a million years I would imagine I would be in this position today.
Hmm.
But yeah, I started seven. I thought it was even older than that,
Hmm.
honestly. But I started back in architecture school. I think it was the third year, maybe second year.
Hmm.
And just as we were discussing earlier, I started because I saw someone else doing on YouTube, and I thought, you know, I'm I might want to do that. I possibly can do that as well. I was already teaching colleagues from my classroom on Photoshop skills, diagrams. So why not post it on YouTube? And then that's how it started. I posted one video here. 6 months later, possibly another video, and it was very delayed from one video to the other, honestly. And eventually, I think it was fifth year, fourth year, possibly fifth year last year during my thesis,
Hmm.
the channel out of nowhere started picking up traction. I wasn't giving too much attention. It was very something like a side hobby, not even a hobby, maybe some very, very on the sidelines. YouTube doesn't pay that well. And back then, it wasn't paying at all. So it was just, let's see where this takes us.
It was probably more into like investing in a personal branding type of thing than rather than kind of making a living from the education kind of things, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
possibly. And I've always been into YouTube,
Hmm.
watching other creators. Never really watched TV or
Yeah.
any cables or whatever. It was always YouTube and following creators. So we always had that foot leaning
Yeah.
towards content creation,
It
I'd
was
say.
kind of the same for me. Even when I was a little kid, I was trying to do like gaming videos, like on YouTube, which are probably somewhere out there, which I don't care to even watch. But YouTube has always been very interesting to me. But I never thought it would be like architecture content that I would post. And obviously, your videos are mostly based on architectural representation, like graphics and 3D visualization and all of that. How do you see YouTube being what are the positives and negatives of being a YouTuber or a content creator in the architecture space?
That's quite a great question because it's tough. On one hand, you're leaning on education, teaching people all around the world, but you're using a platform that is mainly focused on entertainment. So that's the other side of the issue here. It's like you're competing with prank videos,
Yeah,
Mr. Beast of the world, and so it's hard to retain attention throughout the video. So you put so much out, you go through the same stuff, I believe. You put so
yeah,
much after into a video, and people click out after a few minutes, and it's not usually because of the video, because people keep coming back and rewatching the video, but it's hard, That's why usually I like to focus more on course creation and a
yeah,
dedicated platform to really put my efforts into, because it's going to be really enjoyed outside of YouTube.
yeah. And then something else that I'm kind of, even though I'm still like very, very early in the beginning, and you've been for a longer time doing this, sometimes I do feel that people look at it a different way, and maybe sometimes not as serious when you're a content creator in terms of when you're talking to real architects that have like a very established firm or things like that. Do you find this as a challenge, so that sometimes people kind of see content creation as more of a like um, kids
Yeah, they
thing in
see
a
you
sense?
down. Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I understand where this might be coming from,
Mhm.
and yeah, and also I think because architects are very
Egotistical,
yeah, and they think
narcissistic.
they're better than everyone. They
Yeah,
think,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
100%.
this is something that I'll always um, I don't like about the industry, but it's something that we got to deal with.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know, because when I say all of the flexibility that I have in terms of working from anywhere I want,
Yeah.
doing pretty much whatever I want to,
Hmm.
having in mind what the audience wants as well. It's just a little bit of for them, a little bit for me, so that I can not burn out and keep doing this on the long term. But when I talk to them, it's such a different type of career
Hmm.
that recently I've been noticing that they are more interested in what I do, and they ask a lot of questions. So I kind of
Hmm.
know the script that I'm going to go through when I meet a new person and tell them
100%.
what I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and so
definitely.
many doors have opened because of this
Hmm. Yeah.
alternative career that I don't I don't give ears to the bad comments if they ever come.
100%. It's a very different path from like the traditional path of architecture, and I do see a lot of like colleagues from like architecture school that have taken a different path, and sometimes I do feel like I'm missing out on having or experiencing the culture of being like in a company where you have like projects coming from
Yeah.
every side and all of that. Because I haven't experienced that as of now, but do you feel like you sometimes are missing out on the experience of doing architecture like behind the cameras more than on camera and less like on education and stuff?
Yeah, every day, man.
Uh,
It's a constant thinking about like I'm doing something that is new, that uh, it's been a successful in a way, but
mhm,
also how long will I be able to do this? Should I've been thinking about like having a traditional career and
mhm,
uh, growing as an individual, as an architect,
mhm,
always, but also in terms of personal realization, being part of a team, having the culture in the office,
mhm,
and being part of a project that's being developed, and you can see it go through many stages, and
mhm,
seeing that even if it doesn't come to life or it doesn't get built, but it's an incredible progress to see, and I miss that every day, really.
mhm,
That's why I said that I try to do a little bit for the audience, but also a little bit for me, so that I can, if I want to dive into a new competition, or be part of a team, or like go do something else to fulfill that realization, I
mhm.
think I should do it so that I can keep doing this stuff.
And do you do how does like your life look like behind the camera and all that? Like, do you do much projects that are not shown in YouTube and stuff like that?
I used to do more.
Hmm.
Nowadays, not much. I think the videos and the platform as a whole have
Hmm.
taken all of my time.
Hmm.
But from time to time, I do jump into either visualization projects, or I
Hmm.
think the most recent was a competition, a professional competition that I joined with friends of mine.
Hmm.
That they've got this small firm, and there was this local competition from um, a developer that wanted to do like a residential building. So they wanted to join. So they invited me not only as someone that's going to be visualizing, but also as an architect. So
Hmm.
it was a tremendous experience to be able to go
I think
back
you posted
and
that on YouTube,
practice.
right?
What?
You posted that building on YouTube,
Yeah.
right? Okay, yeah,
I think there are 2 or 3 videos about it.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And the outcome of it wasn't like monetary. I wasn't getting anything. It
Hmm.
was purely by personal
Experience.
realization.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously the result ended up being third place, which ended up being we ended up getting paid.
Hmm.
And but even if it wasn't like that wasn't the goal to begin with. So
Hmm.
yeah, from time to time I do jump into those type of things, and nowadays I try to bring everything onto the channel,
Hmm.
more of an experience, share what I'm going through, and I think this hopefully this helps someone across the world, seeing a little bit of my progress, even if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah. And then you mentioned that you were doing like a local competition, and obviously you live in Brazil.
Yep.
Uh, how is life, your day to day life in Brazil, and how is like the architecture regulations and like the architecture industry overall over there?
Um, this is um, this is very different from
Hmm.
because like I deal with an international audience, and I hear from all sides how architecture industry is, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so interesting to compare. But I think Brazil is very similar to every other country here in South America, or maybe Latin American as a whole, where the architect's profession isn't that valued
Hmm.
as a paying job, so it's very underpaid. For
Yeah.
example, as a reference, a fun fact that
Hmm.
maybe when I got out of university, the channel was already picking up traction when I described that timeline for you. But I worked a couple of years as a junior architect, and out of the university, I was making around $300 to $400 US dollars as a month to work full time, like even sometimes until 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. Um, so
It's
it
the
wasn't
same
really
here.
viable.
Yeah.
Same over there, right? Yeah,
I live in Kosovo, which is like in Eastern Europe, but it's pretty much the same thing. I mean, 300, 400 junior architects. I
yeah.
rarely ever get paid more than that. But um, I mean,
And the future of it wasn't really that brighter. It would go up to 500, 600, maybe 700 US dollars, but to go as high, it doesn't happen too often.
yeah,
So it's hard, man. It's really hard.
unless you like own the architecture firm or something like that, even then
Yeah,
it's probably not as much worth it as like I'd say like in the US or kind of more Western countries.
yeah.
Which, by the way, just as a fun fact, even for in Coastal where I live, architects still charge by square meter, so it's a
Yeah,
very
here
very
as well. A lot of people do that as well, which is kind of nonsense. But yeah,
yeah, same, yeah.
yeah.
I
Obviously, the
typically
cost of living here is a lot cheaper than
hmm
US
same
and
same
some countries in Europe. But yeah,
hmm
just as a reference, I think
yeah,
it's nice to talk
100%.
numbers.
And then, like, I want to segue onto some of the tools of architectural representation that are coming up, and I would be very interested in you kind of comparing the tools that we have now and how architectural representation has evolved from when you started YouTube like 7 or 8 years ago to now, and um, what are the what is the transition that has become from that time to today?
Yeah, it has changed a lot.
Hmm.
A lot. And when I first started, one of the biggest skills that I had, I would say, was Photoshop with post production.
Hmm.
Doing that, doing vegetation, doing all types of rendering things. It was much harder to do in a 3D software. Computers couldn't handle that well, such a heavy workflow. So it was very common to end up using Photoshop for everything. Hence, like the course that I have from that time,
Yeah,
teaching architectural post production.
which
Um,
I have the course, by the way. It's a very, very
you
good
do?
course.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Awesome. But yeah, it was something that it was quite useful back then, but less and less. It's losing uh, the importance as real time renderings are coming around and fulfilling that gap. So that
100%.
skill doesn't is not that necessary anymore. Although I do believe it still has an importance because it's where you're going to be able to apply your identity to the image and um, stand out from all of that standard type of rendering that everyone can achieve. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's one of the biggest changes, and also the final render and the first draft renders are becoming more and more similar, where you don't
Yeah.
see much of a difference between like the final render that you send out to a client
Mhm.
or to a finalized competition board to the first few drafts that you come up just to see the project. So I think that gap is closing.
Yeah, 100%. And then something else that we definitely have to mention is as far as the representation tools go is artificial intelligence. I mean, this topic is very trending right now, and it is there is a lot of debate going on. So, what do you think of AI overall, and what do you think is the future of these new tools that are coming out?
Yeah, this is a very controversial topic because
Mhm.
every time I talk about this, the comments
There's
get flooded with people from all sides. For example, I posted in Instagram Reels just commenting on the new Photoshop generative fill, and
Mm,
people went crazy there. I don't know what happened. They were bashing on me as if I created a tool and was going to end up humanity, you know.
yeah.
But it's something that I believe we as a society gonna need to dictate how we're gonna move forward with this.
Mhm,
It's I don't know. It's a very unknown territory as of right now.
mhm,
In 2 years, everything that we're seeing here is possibly gonna change. But as of right now, I see it as a tool that's going to enhance your current workflow and give you more free time to focus on other creative stuff and other human stuff where like this cannot replace this yet. Uh, Possibly will never do, but it like I might be saying something that
yeah.
can be totally
I think as of now,
off.
it's lowering like it's going to first. I think it's going to lower like the requirements for the technical abilities that you have to obtain in order to use 3D rendering. Um, I think that eventually it's going to not replace completely, but it will diminish the importance of a 3D visualization
Yeah,
artist. Just like we kind of mentioned with like post production in Photoshop or
yeah,
kind of like that. I think that is just going to be a lower skill cap in order to create a good looking render because I mean prompts and all of that are really doing the most of work right now. However, I don't think we should fear that. I just think that is going to be a very good tool overall. Like firms are already hiring people that know like Mid Journey very well in order to get inspired for competitions and all of that. I hear that in a few firms in Germany, like there's AI artists in that sense, or people that like just get inspired from AI. But it's a very interesting stuff. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not
Well,
sure where it's going to go either.
that term of AR artist, I just cannot agree. But well, and
That's why I did that
yeah, yeah,
research.
yeah, for sure. And I understand the whole way prompt engineer or something like that. But it's I don't know. It's something that yeah. As of right now, some people know how to do it, and some don't, just because they haven't looked into it. But it's not
Yeah,
that hard of a skill, you know. It's not something I don't know.
yeah,
And
definitely.
I think you nailed it. It came from the very first types of renderings where Photoshop was very on hand, and it required a lot of skills to real time renderers today who are making
Yeah.
fantastic, top
Hmm.
quality, realistic renders with a click of a button. It's just
Hmm.
like a expected progress, and
Yeah.
AI is gonna. It's just a name AI, but it's a tool, you know.
And as far as these like real time rendering tools, Lumion, Enscape, Twinmotion, like DeFi Render, have you tried all of them? And which one do you prefer over the others? Like, do you have a favorite one that you use in most of your workflow, or is
uh,
this going to be like if you do not want to mention this, is totally fine.
No, no, for sure. Is that the time that I gotta say Enscape just because I'm here? You know? No, just kidding. No, but I don't personally. I don't believe there's a better tool
Mhm.
amongst the all of that you mentioned. It's it all comes down to your personal preferences and what ties up into your current workflow.
Mhm.
Uh, I've tested Twinmotion, Lumion, a little bit of D5, I think, but not
Mhm.
much. Like I've opened once or twice. I think I've opened once Enscape, but never looked into it too much. Um,
Yeah.
but I hear Enscape has a huge potential, and that's the next tool actually that I want to get into. And even with this past month that I visit Bjarke Ingels group in New York City, they mention about using Enscape
Yeah.
constantly, Lumen as well, but like Enscape. So it's something that I want to look into. But I think all of these tools they are production quality that you're going to be well served with any of them. It depends on the pricing options that they give. I know Lumen is really expensive compared to the other tools. There are some that are free or
Lumion
that
has
has
higher like
it.
hardware requirements as well, I believe, in terms of the computer. So
Yeah, well, I
yeah.
think most of yeah possibly Lumen, but most of the real time renders they demand a lot from the
Yeah.
specs wise.
I
But
mean, when
yeah,
I look at like real time rendering engines, like for me, I think Enscape has the best time to quality ratio in the sense like it's super, super, super quick. Like it cannot get any faster than that. But I always say this all the time: you can create very good visualizations with any of these tools. It's just for
yeah,
me, I really favor speed in the sense that
yeah,
if something can be done quickly, I want it to be done as soon as possible because honestly, very obviously, we cannot compare the qualities of CPU rendering and GPU rendering. But sometimes with V-Ray, when you wait a long time and then you just see that the shadow is a bit not so well done. Obviously, you can do that with post production, but that it is really a pain to go through all the rendering and waiting and all that. So
yes. I've always been a V-Ray guy because it was the first rendering tool that I learned, and it was, for me, still, I believe is what gives you most creative flexibility in terms of everything that comes as an architectural representation and visualization portfolio, like clay renders, basic, everything that I. But this is personal, and but more and more, I'm getting tired of waiting the V-Ray progress bar to complete to see a result, and I've been leaning more towards real time renderings more and more, but it's exactly what you said. Once you learn how to do in one software, you're going to be able to do it in any other softwares because it's a workflow you learn, it's a process you learn. Because also in 3 4 years, you don't know what's the new software is going to come around, and you're going to need to adapt to that.
So we're talking about Viren. I have a Chaos shirt right now, so shout out to
All
Chaos and
right.
everything they've done with the industry. And obviously, we've probably used all of their tools as of now. But I want to segue into something that you mentioned a little earlier. So you're basically in an architecture school when you started YouTube, and I myself do find a lot of different opinions and topics as far as the education system goes for architects. So, how do you think the education system matches to what an architect has to do in real life scenarios? Is it any
Well,
good, and is it really like worth it? And obviously, we do not have much any kind of alternatives that much, but is it like the ideal education system for architects?
yeah, well, I feel that everyone that went to architecture school or are going through architecture school at the moment feels the same thing. They might not even realize that everybody in the world is going through the same kind of a struggle where you're taught stuff during architecture school that doesn't necessarily apply to real life, and the stuff that really matters, how to approve a project with the urbanism department, how to handle client meetings, how to do actual construction stuff with like the really ins and
Mhm.
outs of a site field, of a construction site. You don't actually learn that in full in architecture school. But also, on the other hand, it architecture is a very demanding career, and it takes a lot of years to become fully like a full-fledged architect. That I feel, which for me here in Brazil is 5 years of school to become an architect. I know that in other places this varies, and you might need to go through masters to become an
Yeah.
architect. But I feel that it's not enough time to teach everything. The main goal of architecture school is to teach you how to solve problems and figure stuff out. Come up with a design process that can handle any type of scale, any type of challenge. I think that's the main goal of architecture school.
Hmm.
But I know maybe there might be a gap between the old professors that don't really know how to handle new technology with that professors that they only do academic stuff and are not connected to the professional world.
Yeah.
There's lots of
Honestly.
stuff that we could talk about, but I do feel that gap, and that's basically the main reason I'm doing what I'm doing today. That's
Hmm.
that's the main reason my channel exists, the Upstairs platform exists, because architecture school doesn't teach architectural representation and in
Hmm.
terms of expressing yourself. Visualization, we don't even get started on that
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
they don't teach
100%.
anything. 3D modeling, they just scrub through it, just brush on some stuff. So yeah, and I
Yeah.
don't know how we can solve this, but that's definitely
Yeah, I
an
mean,
issue
there's
there.
not much alternatives going on as of now, but I think I definitely agree with everything you said. I also think that it the experience differs very much in what kind of university you choose to go to. So I myself don't go to, like, it's not a very highly known or like university or
Mhm.
anything like that. And obviously, I think a lot of people encounter this, that there is a lot of professors that they haven't like designed anything in their life. Like they know theory, and obviously there's a lot of architectural theorists out there, so I'm not trying to discredit anyone, but I think architecture is very much practical in that sense. And sometimes there's a lot of things that are taught that do not have much practical use in the real world. And I definitely struggle with this a lot in terms of debating with other colleagues and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's a very uh, a big topic that I talk day to day about
Yeah.
this.
Something that I've always noticed while talking to
Hmm.
everybody that
Hmm.
end up coming through my DMs. Like this is an amazing opportunity that I have to talk to so many different types of people and going through so many levels of careers and different types of schools that they all go through
Yeah.
the same problem. It's just you don't usually realize that until
Mhm.
you're far into the architecture
Yeah.
journey.
And then there another thing that I also noticed 90% of the time, architecture students are always struggling financially, because architecture school takes a lot of time, and there's not enough time to do other stuff. And also at the same time, you want to kind of have a job that is correlated to the architecture field. Um, what would you actually suggest to architecture students in terms of what can they do to improve their skills, and like also be more like financially free, because architecture is a very expensive kind of field as well. So what would be kind of your advice in that sense?
Um, the answer that I give here will not apply to everybody. Is
Hmm.
the cultural backgrounds and
Hmm.
the reality that everyone go through is different. But as a reference, here in Brazil, it's really common that while you study architecture, you also do a part time
Hmm.
internship, like constantly, not just like a summer internship. So
Yeah.
it's very common to go through the entire architecture school pretty much working part
Hmm.
time. And there's even people, because architecture school here either goes mornings or evenings, like nighttime.
Okay.
So I had a lot of colleagues of mine that went to school during like between 7 and 11 p.m., and they worked a full-time job on
Hmm.
top of that, which is insane for me. And
Hmm.
I was very fortunate not to have to do that, and I
Hmm.
only end up working part-time. So went to school during the morning,
Hmm.
grab lunch somewhere, or went back home to cook something, and then went to my internship, which started at 1:30 p.m.
Hmm.
and went until 6 p.m. And that was one of my biggest evolutions in terms of architect,
Hmm.
where I got to learn everything that they don't teach at school. So this is very common, and as doing that also enabled me to pay for a lot of stuff from school and help me financially.
Hmm.
But I know this is impossible to some schools that
Hmm.
happen full
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So that's what I said. Like something that I comment here might not fit everybody.
I mean, I most of the time I would agree with you on this one, but sometimes I also suggest people to try and pick up any kind of skill that is correlated to architecture, like 2D drafting, 3D stuff, and then maybe try to be a freelancer, which is not easy at all in that sense. But uh, have you had any experience with like freelance work, and what would be some of your advice in order to get clients in that sense?
Yeah, for sure. I think I agree with you as well that if you can,
Hmm.
I would encourage you to get freelancing work. And if you're not from an English speaking country, like or from Europe or US, and you're from a not as developed country, if you say so, like Brazil or any Latin American country or
Hmm.
Eastern Europe, as you were mentioning, Asia, whatever,
Hmm.
try to get jobs from high paying countries so that your work can stretch longer than what you do locally. But yeah, for that you would need English. But if you do have that skill, if you're fortunate enough to have learned or like picked up during your school years,
Hmm.
I would encourage you to go for that. I did some freelancing work when I was still in school, mainly locally, and that it's a lot of work, doesn't pay well, but it was experience and it was money nonetheless. But as the channel started to grow, I ended up getting a lot of proposals in my email inbox. So
Mm-hmm.
some from time to time, I do say yes to a couple of them, which is just usually not for the monetary reward, but more of a experience and being able to connect with
Mm-hmm.
different types of challenges and requests.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. I have an image that I've been wanting to share for a long time and do a video on, but
Mm-hmm.
I end up doing this image, this visualization, which end up being one image only for a competition in Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken, from a
Okay.
guy from Portugal that ended up seeking me through email. So a very like out of this world that I would never imagine that could happen,
Mm-hmm.
and it was fantastic. The project was
Yeah.
interesting, but yeah, but this doesn't apply to everyone. I know that. So I
Yeah.
would try to look up to freelancing websites. Like I know Fiverr is not that reliable and it doesn't pay much,
100%.
but like other websites like this, and
Mm-hmm.
one client might need to another.
Yeah, I mean, I started out my freelancing stuff in Fiverr like 4 years ago, 3 years ago. It, honestly, it's all right as a student, but I think it would be smarter to invest your time more. Maybe at least for me now, looking back on it, it would be more worth it if I invested more time in like personal branding and doing more content and all that. So, um, yeah, I mean that is that, but. Something that we've seen in the recent weeks, as you've put out some reels and some stories, I think, is that you went on a trip to New York with Steven from Show It Better.
Yeah.
What content can we expect coming up from that trip soon?
Yeah, it was an incredible opportunity. I was going to this trip in the first place,
Hmm.
and I mentioned to Steven that I was going to be there, and I said,
Hmm.
hey, why don't you come up and we can meet up? And
Hmm.
because we've always done stuff, but only
Yeah.
through Zoom calls and all of that. And well, he said yes. We ended up meeting for a week. Maybe I think it was he stayed for 10 days, but he had family around, so
Yeah.
we had 1 week to do stuff, and
Hmm.
we got to visit Bjarko Ingo's group in New York City, which there's a video coming up both in Steven's channel and my channel.
Hmm.
We also visited a couple of friends of mine that live there. They also work as architects, so we got to visit their offices. We didn't record anything for
Yeah.
as a video, maybe a couple of stories. We also did a portfolio review in person, which is already live for
Yeah.
those interested.
I'll leave
And
the link to that in the description of the podcast. So
awesome, thank
I
you.
mean, every time you do a collaboration, it does very good in terms of like viewership, but people really, really enjoy that. And I mean, you have been doing YouTube for a long time, maybe started at around the same time. So, how has the collaboration between you two come into fruition? Because, as I said, the videos that you post online are very well appreciated from the whole community.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I actually started after Steven, and I
Hmm.
started inspired by him. Actually,
Hmm.
I saw that he was doing YouTube. I saw that he was teaching a lot of cool stuff on YouTube,
Hmm.
and we can tie that back to the beginning of the conversation we had.
Hmm.
So yeah, when I started, I think he already had maybe 100K
Oh,
YouTube
okay.
subscribers. He was quite on into it,
Hmm.
but eventually when the channel started to grow and we started to um, so I don't know, I don't remember exactly. I think I reached out and then we ended up talking, and then
Hmm.
eventually we came up with the idea of doing stuff together. And as of today, we are pretty much on the same level, I would say, in terms
Hmm.
of reach. He
Yeah.
has far more Instagram followers on Instagram than I do, but in terms of YouTube, we're pretty much on the same level.
Hmm.
And it's so fun because we do not, I wouldn't say it's exactly the same thing,
Hmm.
but it's very similar in terms of types of content that we create and types of challenges that we go through. And it's an amazing thing to have someone that you can run ideas by and even discuss partnerships with brands you know, do partnerships together. It's,
Hmm.
as we were discussing earlier, it's a
Yeah.
lonely ride, and it's a very particular thing that we do that we don't have anyone to um,
Yeah.
run ideas by. So
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
it's
I'll
it's
say it. I'll
incredible.
say it right here. Obviously, I started my journey like only 2 years ago, but your content, you show it better, and also 30 by 40 workshop
Yeah,
have always been like an
Eric is
inspiration
amazing.
to start the channel. Which I mean, the 30 by 40 workshop YouTube channel is on another
He's on
level.
another level for sure. Like it's incredible what he
Almost like
does, and
documentaries,
yeah,
which is very very cool. Yeah.
I got to talk to him once.
Uh-huh.
He's such a cool guy, interesting person, and he reached out by email, and we ended up talking for an hour and something.
Hmm.
He's incredible, and what he does is inspires a lot of people, and
Hmm.
especially
Yeah.
me.
Okay, so I mean, as ending point to the podcast, I'd like you to maybe just give a few tips to people who are starting out in architecture school, or even people who want to start out their content creation journey with architecture. What would be your advice, and like, what do you think are the best steps to take, or what you would make different to your journey until now?
Let's say, well, there's a video that I also recorded in New York
Hmm.
that's exactly not exactly about that, but maybe touches on that point. It's going to be something like things that I wish I had known before I went to architecture school or
Hmm.
while I was in there. Some things that I only picked up on the last years that I wish I had knew earlier. So that's one that's coming out with a video. But if you're interested in doing content creation, you got to be prepared because this is a long game. The results doesn't come up with a year of work, 2 years of work. It's not like just 5 videos that you're going to create and it's going to work out. It's something that you got to enjoy the process because it's long. And Melos here knows exactly what I'm talking about. The editing process takes a lot of time
Hmm.
and more time than doing actual architecture stuff for the channel, so it's a little bit of design, a little bit of visualization, and then
Yeah.
lots of recording and editing. And if you don't enjoy this process, you're not going to be able to sustain this for a long time. So, and
Yeah.
content creation isn't the only solution for an alternative career.
Hmm.
It's not for everybody. um,
Or at least video creation. I mean, a lot of people do good with blogging as well, which I'm not doing. I do
yeah.
not do too much, but I mean, blogging is a good way to content creation as well. I myself hated editing, and I'm at a point right now for 3 or 4 months. I've been able to get someone full time in the office to help me with editing, and honestly, it has been a very big peace of mind. So I mean,
That's interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet, but
Uh-huh.
I think I like the editing process. It's where I can
Yeah.
add my identity, but it's not for everybody, and I wish I think it might be something that I'm going to look into it
Yeah,
for the
100%.
next months. But I wanted to add that you don't have to do YouTube if you want to do content creation. You can focus on Instagram. You can focus on other platforms.
Mhm,
Um, there's loads of styles and formats that you can try,
mhm.
or you can also go to a freelancing type of format where you do clients all around the world, and that can be something.
100%.
But I didn't answer the what I've done differently, right?
Mhm,
The during architecture. So I'm thinking about that, but I think I've done a couple of competitions. I wish I had done more. I wish I had done more different types of design
mhm.
of challenges, not only like the local internships that I did, not only the local competitions, uh, which led up to interesting opportunities, but I would pick up extra stuff, try to reach out to offices that firms that you would never expect to get returns, put yourself out there, and it's a learning process. You think architecture school is everything, in your life. It's gonna set up your entire career, and you gotta make the best of the 5 years, the 6 years, or whatever that format might be. But that's not true.
Hmm.
Architecture school is just the very, very, very first steps of your
Yeah.
journey that doesn't impact too much of your entire life. You can make up later. Go to you can go to more traditional paths later and try untraditional first. You can explore. I have so many friends that went to school with me that are not pursuing any more architecture's career because they tried the traditional path and it didn't work. They didn't like, and
Hmm.
now they're looking and seeking to more untraditional ways to
Yeah.
pursue their
100%.
career. So
I mean,
I wish I had known that earlier. Actually,
yeah. I mean, one thing that I think it's an upside in architecture school is definitely meeting people who are obviously doing architecture as well. And for me, at least as of now, some of the most important networking has been done while in architecture school. But obviously, that doesn't mean that like your network is going to be 100% complete in architecture school on that. But I definitely agree on your point, and
yeah.
can see that. I mean, one other question that I wanted to ask you before we actually end this is, do you have an end goal, or do you have like a set goal in the architecture field or industry? Where do you see yourself in terms of like your final form, let's say, in the architecture industry?
That's tough to answer honestly because as of right now, I feel that I don't know where this is all going.
Hmm.
Um, Back when I was working as a junior architect and the channel picked up traction, and I ended up launching my first course, and that uh, gave me monetary results to quit my job and pursue this as a full time. It was a shot in the dark, and I didn't know if this was going to be something
Hmm.
um, successful or not. And I don't know how many years I still have with all of the new technology coming up, and if I do have the energy to keep doing this for 7 more years, with the same format, I might change. I think this is going to be evolving constantly. For example, this year I've been focusing a lot more on collabs, on that
Hmm.
that's the big NYC office that we got to visit, and I loved that process. So that content might change and might evolve.
Hmm.
And something that I've always had my mind on is possibly one day going back to the more traditional path, dealing
Okay.
with like day to day architect tasks,
Hmm.
design, doing more competition. So hopefully the platform can grow, and I use that to sustain myself
Yeah.
as an architect, to not have to lean on clients to get paid,
Yes.
but rather focus on what I truly believe.
Hmm.
That's kind of a dream, I would say, but it's something that I've always had on my mind, and it might be where I'm going in the next years.
100%. I mean, that's definitely been my goal as well, to just be independent in terms of what the clients are going to pay me anyway, and then in terms of financial gains, maybe just get it from other sources and just do architecture as not for fun in that sense, but kind of without thinking the
Yeah,
financial route. But
being able to say no to a client, or
yeah,
choose the type of
100%.
client that you want, or focus solely on competition.
Hmm.
Um, one thing that drags you down while an architect is handling shitty clients, and
Yeah,
being
100%.
underpaid and having to deal with
100%.
problems every day. So yeah,
100%.
everyone knows it's yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I definitely agree with you on that. Well, on that note, I really want to thank you for taking the time to be part of the podcast. And honestly, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. It's the first time we meet, and he's going to go out in the internet, and I'm definitely looking forward to more collaborations in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Melos. It's been an incredible conversation. Really enjoyed it. The time flew by, honestly.
Yeah.
And
100%.
yeah,
Well,
thank you.
thank you. All right. Thank you everyone for watching. And if you want to see Oliver's latest video, you can check that in the description. And I will see you on the next one.